Hi, I'm Laura Robles from Fredericksburg, Virginia, and I would like to welcome everyone to today's debate on school-wide positive behavior support and applied behavior analysis. The format for today's debate will be formal. Our group felt that this would be the best format to deliver the most concise and effective arguments based on our smaller group size and the nature of our topic. I will be presenting the introduction to today's debate, as well as being the stater and prover for the pro side, which states school-wide positive behavior support is an application of applied behavior analysis. Amanda Whitehead will be the stater and prover of the opposing side, which states school-wide positive behavior support is in conflict with applied behavior analysis. She will also present the summary of the debate.
Hi, my name is Amanda Whitehead. I'm from Marlton, New Jersey.
Ken Enman will be the attacker of both sides of today's debate.
I'm Ken Enman from Greenfield, Indiana.
Today's topic states, school-wide positive behavior support is sometimes considered to be an application of applied behavior analysis. Other behavior analysts see it as watered-down ABA, and some behavior analysts see it as in conflict with ABA. Consider the fundamental components and process of school-wide positive behavior support and applied behavior analysis. What do you see the relationship as? So I'd like to start by stating why school-wide positive behavior is considered an behavior analysis. To state that something is an application of something else is not to say that the two are exactly the same. According to learnersdictionary.com, states that an application is, quote, the use of an idea, method, law, etc., in a particular situation or for a particular purpose, end quote. There is a great deal of research to suggest that school-wide positive behavior support uses the ideas and methods of applied behavior analysis across the school-wide system in order to achieve meaningful results and make positive changes in the lives of the students. Which brings me to my first point. Both school-wide positive behavior support and applied behavior analysis implement behavioral change using common principles and techniques. While ABA uses these principles and techniques on an individualized basis, positive behavior support uses them on a tiered model. As seen in Carr, Dunlap, Horner, Kegel, Turnbull, and Saylor 2002, school-wide positive behavior support and applied behavior analysis share the use of many teaching strategies. Some of these include shaping, chaining, prompting, baiting, and reinforcement contingencies. The defining characteristics of applied behavior analysis, according to Cooper and Heron, 2007, are applied, behavioral, analytical, conceptual, effective, technological, and generality. Horner and Sagai, 2015, suggests that school-wide positive behavior support shares these same 7 characteristics as its core features and is actually an applied version of behavioral theory. Let's take a closer look at these dimensions to see how they are seen in both positive behavior support and applied behavior analysis. Applied refers to the application of an intervention to socially significant problems. Both ABA and PBS apply the same techniques in order to decrease problem behaviors of social significance. Behavioral means that the behaviors must be measurable. Positive behavior support and applied behavior analysis both utilize analytical suggests that there is a functional relationship between the intervention and behavior. And ABA use similar interventions to find the function of the behavior, and graphs are used to show these relationships. Looking at the conceptual characteristic, many of the concepts and ideas that began in applied behavior analysis, such as the 3-term contingency, stimulus control, generality, maintenance, and event settings, extended to and are responsible for the development of school-wide positive behavior support. The effectiveness of PBS and ABA has been seen in various studies. Generality, the ability to continue in different environments, and after formal training is finished, is programmed into both with the implementation of family-oriented approaches. Using many of the same concepts as ABA, PBS is an application of ABA and should not be considered any more fundamentally different than other applications of ABA. such as precision teaching or organizational behavior. Lawrence and Guy go on to suggest that positive behavior support may be considered to be, and I quote, instance of applied behavior analysis, end quote. This brings me to my second point, which is that school-wide positive behavior support is data-driven. Code 3.01b from Ethics for Behavior Analysts, 3rd edition, states, quote, behavior analysts have an obligation to collect and graphically display data using behavior analytic conventions in a manner that allows for decisions and recommendations for behavior change program development, end quote. As stated by Putnam and Kincaid, and again I quote, school-wide positive behavior support suggests the use of single case designs and the visual presentation of data at each tier to determine whether there are changes in frequency and or intensity of the problem behavior, end quote. Dunlap, Carr, Horner, Zacconi, and Schwartz, 2008, go on to say that, quote, PBS is an overtly value-based technology that integrates consumer preferences with database decision-making, end quote. Like ABA, positive behavior support uses data to measure the fidelity and effectiveness of interventions. Discrete measures may be used to track the frequency or duration of targeted behaviors for either increase or decrease. In applied behavior analysis, data may be taken to track the frequency of a behavior for reduction, like headbanging. Here is an example of such a graph. Shows the frequency of headbanging in 4 different conditions: attention, escape, alone, and free play, in order to find the function of the headbanging behavior. In positive behavior support, frequency data may be collected on the behavior of a group of students, such as out-of-school suspensions, as in the following example. And then PBS and ABA both consider the 3-term contingency and at times may collect ABC or antecedent behavior consequence data in order to find the function of a behavior. An example of an ABC data collection sheet can also be seen. As stated before, PBS shares the characteristics behavioral, analytic, and affective. It could not share these characteristics if it did not also share the data-driven model that was rooted in ABA. Final point, that positive behavior support evolved from ABA and still uses many of the same assessments. School-wide positive behavior support has clear roots in applied behavior analysis, according to articles by Putnam and Kincaid, 2015, Horner and Sagai, 2015, Dunlap, Carr, Horner, Zacconi, and Schwartz, 2008, and Johnson, 2006. Not only state that PBS evolved from ABA, but that it continues to remain similar. Putnam and Kincaid point out that the development, foundation, practice, and emphasis on observable behaviors that is seen in school-wide positive behavior support was borrowed from ABA. Horner and Sagai state, quote, the impact of behavior analysis on positive behavior support is most clear in A, the emphasis on operational definitions of behavior and intervention elements, B, the logic model used to select environmental manipulations designed to alter student and staff behavior, and C, an unrelenting commitment to measurement of both implementation fidelity and the impact on positive behavior support on student outcomes. According to Ethical Code 3.01 from Bailey and Birch, 2016, behavior analysts conduct current assessments prior to making recommendations or developing behavior change programs. The type of assessment used is determined by clients' needs and consent, environmental parameters, and other contextual variables. When behavior analysts are developing a behavior reduction program, they must first develop a functional assessment. According to Dunlap et al., functional assessments and functional analysis are used in both applied behavior analysis and positive behavior support. Dunlap et al. Also state that, quote, a large proportion of the principal contributors to positive behavior support were trained as behavior analysts, published research in and served on the editorial boards of applied behavior analysis journals, or the Journal of Applied Behavior Analysis, JABA, and remained committed to and identified with applied behavior analysis. It cannot be more simply and clearly stated, however, than when Dunlap et al. Actually say, and I quote, PBS evolved from ABA. The field of applied behavior analysis is very young. Starting in the 1960s, it is still evolving and adapting to meet the needs of those requiring services. The principles and techniques of ABA can be used in many environments, from early intervention to schools, to nursing homes, to large organizations. Some adaptations may be made to serve the target client, and the changes may result in a different name. In these cases, you might say they are applying ABA in a different way, but the same basic goal of using reinforcement to increase good behaviors and interventions to decrease harmful or negative behaviors and targeting socially significant behaviors that can improve quality of life are apparent in each environment. Therefore, based on the points and evidence presented today, I must insist that school-wide positive behavior support is clearly an application of applied behavior analysis. I will now turn this presentation to Ken, who will present the arguments against these points presented.
Thank you, Laura. Point A is my contention that ABA and Swpbs do not share all of the common principles, and Swpbs combines several theoretical perspectives. While school-wide positive behavior support may have evolved from applied behavioral analysis, it falls short of the main features of ABA. Only at the highest tier of Swpbs do you see any individual attention paid to a student in a fashion of an ABA intervention. Bear, Wolf, and Risley in 1968 stated that the application of behavioral analysis is, and I quote, self-examining, self-evaluating, discovery-oriented research procedure for studying behavior. Swpbs mostly lacks this aspect since it's applied in a general fashion with no attempt to discover the function of a certain behavior except at the tier 3 level. For example, in 2006, researchers in the UK found that displaying an image of a pair of human eyes resulted in greater payment for milk to an honesty box than occurred with a picture of flowers. They demonstrated a functional relationship between the picture of human eyes and a greater chance that milk drinkers would pay for their milk. Could we see the watching eyes, Amanda, please? This is an example of a tactic more likely to be employed as a positive behavior support for a group such as in tier 1 or 2. You do not need to analyze why students are doing something you want them to do or not to do, but since we know that a pair of eyes makes humans more likely to behave in a pro-social way, we display the eyes and see if it works. In the case of the eyes and payment for the milk consumed, the researchers demonstrated a link between the picture of the eyes and payments collected by alternating with a different picture. Flowers. Would an Swpbs system work as hard to demonstrate a functional relationship? If they placed a poster of watching eyes by recycle containers in an effort to get students to place the proper material in the correct receptacle, and this did seem to occur, would they bother to conduct a reversal to establish a functional relationship? We could also say that the eyes were the stimulus, the pro-social behavior, the response, but what would be a reinforcer or punisher? Some vague internal mechanism, as Chomsky said. Again, this would lack a key component of ABA. Point B, while both ABA and Swpbs are data-driven, ABA is directed at the individual, while Swpbs, with the exception of tier 3, is geared towards groups. And if we could see the image of the Swpbs tiers. So would a pair of watching eyes be an effective intervention for a student with ASD who keeps breaking their pencil lead when presented with math problems, thus requiring frequent trips to the pencil sharpener? That is, of course, very disruptive to the class. Perhaps posting a pair of eyes over the pencil sharpener would be an effective intervention. Functional behavioral analysis would gather data on antecedents, i.e. math problems, and seek to learn the cause of the behavior. While it could be motivated by escape, it might be that while concentrating on the math problem, the student presses too hard with the pencil, breaking the lead. The behavioral analyst could discover the cause and come up with an intervention for either scenario. Attempting to implement changes for the whole class would be a complete waste of time and perhaps even counterproductive. In a 2008 article appearing in the journal, Behavior Modification sought to clarify some shared attributes and key differences between positive behavior support and applied behavioral analysis. Its authors, Dunlap, Carr, Horner, Zarconi, and Swartz, assert that positive behavior support, and I quote, "The distinctions arise from the PBS effort to make strategies more effective in complex settings and at multiple levels and larger scales of implementation." A 2007 article originally published in the Autism Advocate magazine by Gould and Pratt and posted on the website education.com regarding discipline in children with ASD. The article, they touch on, and I might pronounce this incorrectly, tertiary supports from Tier 3 PBS. They state, and I quote, "Even as a student with ASD involved in school-wide and group support, there may be continued need for additional and individualized support to address a smaller number of behaviors or specific behavior across settings. In these cases, the functional behavior assessment is conducted, beginning with defining the behavior of concern, identifying its function, teaching alternative behaviors and skills, and developing a plan to support new behaviors. This is a functional behavioral analysis, not simply an assessment or an extension of SWPBS. Changing the word analysis to assessment does not change the purpose, which leads to point C. Point C, SWPBS lacks the rigorous training required with ABA. While I concede the point, PBS evolved from ABA, I strongly disagree that they share enough similarities to be considered even remotely equal. I found it difficult to pin down any training requirements for practicing SWPBS, PBS, PBIS, or more specifically, to conduct a functional behavioral assessment called for in Tier 3. Performing a search using Google, I found 2 public universities offering certificates in PBIS. Western Michigan University is offering a 15 credit hour graduate certificate program. Plymouth University is offering a 12 credit hour certification in PBIS, neither of which specifically mentions training in conducting a functional behavioral assessment. There also does not appear to be any group providing oversight of persons claiming to be knowledgeable and proficient at implementing an SWPBS program. No requirements for acting as a consultant to a publicly funded school system. Section 102, the boundaries of competence of the BCAB Code of Ethics, states that all behavior analysts provide services, teach, and conduct research only within the boundaries of their competence, defined as being commensurate with their education, training, and supervised experience. The training requirements of SWPBS fall far short in regards to conducting a functional behavioral analysis or functional assessment, then developing and implementing an efficacious intervention. And I'll turn that back to Laura.
Okay, so we're now going to have Amanda presenting the second side of the debate, which is that school-wide positive behavior support is in conflict with applied behavior analysis.
Thank you. So my first point in support that school-wide positive behavior support is in conflict with ABA is the time and dedication school-wide positive behavior supports require. Schools need to dedicate at least 3 years or more to the implementation and growth of positive behavior supports. Moreover, not only do schools need to dedicate that much time to the implementation for the behavioral modification model to be effective, but there must be at least 80% participation from its staff and staff supports. In reality, the time and commitment would actually be higher in schools due to the large turnover rate of administration and faculty. According to the academic article entitled Applying Behavior Analysis to School Violence and Discipline problems, authors Anderson and Kincaid state, quote, schools should not move forward with implementation of school-wide positive behavior supports program until at least 80% of faculty indicate that they will participate in and support the program for at least 3 to 4 years, end quote. The speed at which we want these behavior programs to work is critical for the treatment and efficacy of our clients. Several ethical codes state that, above all else, we should be applying the best treatment. According to Ethic Code 2.09, which states, clients have the right to effective treatment and behavior analysts have the obligation to advocate for and educate the client about the scientifically supported, most effective treatment programs. Procedures have been validated as both long-term and short-term benefits to clients and society. While school-wide positive behavior support is based in scientifically supported research, as the codes state, it does not have the efficacy and immediacy as other components of Code 2.09 states. Because so much time and commitment is needed to ensure the success of students under this behavior modification system, the modification itself does not produce a success rate that would comply with the latter part of the code. Besides the length of time, school-wide positive behavior support is also in conflict in that it requires so much participation from staff to be effective. As a current teacher, I understand how difficult it is to implement even the most sound and evidence-based policies. Teachers are given such a great deal of work and other obligations, it would be unreasonable to expect that many teachers commit to a program that takes so many years before it begins to show its benefits. This is also in conflict with other several codes, one of which being 1.02 and 1.03. Code 1.02 states that all individuals engaged in the behavior modification system must operate within the boundaries of their competency. The code goes on to describe competence as, quote, being commensurate with the education, training, and supervised experience. This would require a great deal of money and time dedicated to making sure that teachers and support staff were continually being educated and held the appropriate requirements for implementing behavior modification system. Because school-wide positive behavior supports does not require this type of specific training from its participants, it is clear that hiring a behavior analyst would be both efficient and effective in terms of behavior modification and in terms of related costs. My second point in describing the conflict is in the tiered system of school-wide positive behavior supports. One of the #1 principles in special education is the idea that education and the way that it is implemented is based on an individualized plan. These legally binding documents called IEPs are meant to apply a truly individualized plan that ensures the success of its individual. According to IDEA, an IEP is defined as a written statement, quote, for a child with a disability that is developed, reviewed, and revised in accordance with state laws, end quote. Located within the IEP are sections that are designated to the supports the individual may need outside of the classroom, sometimes including behavior analysts. Implementing school-wide positive behavior support would be in conflict with ABA because, according to author Amy Locust in her rebuttal to Horner and Sagai, quote, PBIS is not behavior analysis. She states, school-wide positive behavior support is a Tier 3 approach to system-wide change. Here, author Locust is describing a system that is in direct conflict with the nature of a student's IEP. As we understand through IEPs, the success of an individual with special needs is based upon a truly unique and individualized plan. According to Ethics Code 4.03, behavior analysts must tailor behavior change programs to the unique behaviors, environmental variables, and assessment results and goals of each client. And this is where the conflict lies between school-wide positive behavior supports and behavior analysis. My third and final point is that school-wide positive behavior support is designed to ultimately improve academic discipline functions. According to author John O. Cooper of Ohio State University, quote, applied behavioral research is concerned with the manipulation of environmental stimuli to help individuals efficiently and effectively emit specific responses that are important to clients or society. He continues by stating that, quote, this definition implies that the applied behavior research is interested in what people do rather than what they say, end quote. This is particularly important when looking at school-wide positive behavior supports compared to behavior analysis. The goal of behavior analysis is to do exactly what Cooper states, which is provide our clients with the resources needed to engage within society. While academic success may be a resulting factor of successfully applied behavior modification procedures, it is not the end goal. However, the goal for school-wide positive behavior supports is to increase student academic successes system-wide. According to authors Sugai, Horner, and Lewis in their 2009 article, quote, a set of intervention practices and organizational systems for establishing the social culture and intensive individual behavior supports needed to achieve academic and social success for all students. As we've discussed in the other points within this debate, school-wide positive behavior support is not totally individualized like the authors would have you believe, though the ultimate goal of school-wide positive behavior support is academic growth. And while there are elements of school-wide positive behavior supports that do place emphasis on modifying behavior so that individuals can find social successes, it is not the primary focus, as it is in behavior analysis. Not only are the definition of these two systems at opposition, the very nature of school-wide positive behavior supports focusing on academic outcomes conflict with the ethical codes as well. Like my first point, my argument of school-wide positive behavior supports as a way to improve academic functions over behavioral is challenging Code 2.09, which states that clients have the right to effective treatment. Effective treatment for many clients may not have anything to do with academic functions, but with how they are able to live and maintain an independent life. In this way, school-wide positive behavior supports does not look at the students or individuals who have behavioral goals outside of that are those that are academic. In my concluding statement, I want to ensure that as a behavior analyst, we are providing the most appropriate and effective care. We have training and a set of ethics codes which function to help us maintain that very principle. While the long-term goal of school-wide positive behavior support may be beneficial to a school district, the function of behavior analysis is to see lasting behavior change as quickly as possible. We want to ensure that academic functions are not the only aspects of our clients' lives that are improving, and we need to make sure that the treatments we are implementing are both evidence-based and individualized. In summation, it is difficult to say that school-wide positive behavior supports is behavior analysis. In fact, many components are in conflict with ABA. I'm going to turn it back over to Ken.
Thank you, Amanda. Amanda's first point, A, regarding the degree of faculty participation for implementing SWPBS, teacher perceptions would be important to achieving the commitment needed to implement SWPBS effectively. In 2013, and I may pronounce the name wrong, Furborn and Tyre conducted an online survey of elementary and secondary school teachers who taught in schools that were planning or implementing or in the implementation phases of an SWPBS program. They found that elementary school teachers viewed SWPBS more favorably than did teachers at secondary school facilities. They also found that more teachers had favorable views of SWPBS in schools that were actually implementing SWPBS than did teachers at schools who were still in the planning phase. Authors also cite Everett Rogers, his book, Theory of Diffusion, and then I quote, momentum gained with successful implementation of an innovation facilitates increasing levels of stakeholder support. This would suggest that once a program is in place, that it is easier to recruit more faculty to actively support the program. A recent article appearing in AERA Open, the peer-reviewed journal of the American Education Research Association, asserts that SWPBS has been implemented at over 20,000 schools in the U.S. and in over 19 countries worldwide. The argument that such a high bar for implementation of an effective Tier 1 SWPBS program is unattainable is not supportable by available evidence. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act does not require a functional behavioral assessment for certain, or does require a functional behavioral assessment for certain students. According to a fact sheet I found on the University of California, Sacramento's website, IDEA does not specify any members of a particular profession or members of the IEP team who might be qualified to conduct functional behavioral assessments. As a result of the lack of federal direction, states or even districts must determine who conducts the assessments. Thus, the assertion that IDEA requires the use of trained or certified behavioral analysts to conduct behavioral assessments or intervention is not supported by federal law though I will concede that it may be required by state or local statutes or, of course, school district policy. There is nothing that would prohibit a district from utilizing only trained behavioral analysts for SWPBS Tier 3 programs. And of course, point 3, SWPBS is designed to improve academic discipline functions. I'm not a teacher. I don't have a teaching license, and when I complete the program here, I still will not be qualified to teach any subject in a public school. Again, because Section 102 of the BCAB Code, Boundaries of Competence, states, and I quote again, all behavioral analysts provide services, teach, conduct research only within their boundaries of their competence, defined as being commensurate with their education, training, and supervised experience. I will acknowledge that there is a certain group of students whose disabilities and behavioral challenges will put them into a gray area where they may be mainstreamed in public school setting or might require individual one-on-one learning, or even both. I can see where a conflict may develop with this cohort of students who at times will require individualized attention and extensive intervention. Weiss, Del Pizzo, Ching, LaRue, and Sloman in 2010 explores whether, as I agree with, PBIS, an extension of ABA, or as others contend, it is a separate science. Unlike ABA, PBS consolidates not only behavioral principles, but seeks to avoid the use of aversive stimuli, punishment, normalize the person, and seek their inclusion in classes and activities with peers who are not afflicted with behavioral issues or learning disabilities. And I quote, person-centered values. That's from Weiss et al. 2010. The conflict seems to arise from the supporters of PBS, labeling ABA as traditional and not as flexible as PBS, while supporters of ABA point out the lack of training standards for PBS and poor adherence to evidence-based practices. SWPBS has a place in public schools because it is effective for the greatest number of students. It can even improve the learning environment for students with disabilities by reducing bullying and improving acceptance and inclusion by students without a diagnosable disability, and does this by integrating an anti-bullying program into SWPBS. I'll give that back to Laura if she's ready for our closing statements.
Yes, so if you want to go ahead, Ken, your closing statement.
Okay, my closing statement, it says, I believe that from all the arguments and evidence presented, that it's safe to say that SWPBS and ABA are related, though they may have different goals or focus on groups of individuals, and are best suited to specific situations or individual needs. It'd be most productive to work together to require standards for those responsible for implementing or managing an SWPBS program, and requiring specific training for those who are conducting or interpreting a functional analysis of any kind. There should be specific triggers for when to seek the services of board-certified behavioral analysts. Those currently practicing or managing in ABA need to recognize the benefits that SWPBS provides to a large number of students. They are not simply economic competitors. We should work towards mutual relationships between the two disciplines.
All right, thank you. So sort of to reiterate what Ken has already stated, in conclusion, after we've looked at the data and have talked about some of the information we've seen and hearing both sides of school-wide positive behavior supports, is an extension of ABI, or excuse me, is behavior analysis, and school-wide positive behavior supports is in conflict with ABI. We suggest that school-wide positive behavior supports, as Ken had stated earlier, is an extension of ABI. We believe that school-wide positive behavior supports does not necessarily encompass all of the factors and elements that are required by behavior analysts, such as the training and the variety of ethics codes, but we do believe that school-wide positive behavior supports was born from ABI and does maintain many similar principles and techniques, although with different populations and goals in mind. So while they are not the same thing, they can work together without conflict. What is important to keep in mind when implementing school-wide positive behavior supports is that, like the principles of ABI, appropriate behavior should be reinforced so that its occurrence becomes more frequent. Ultimately, all students can benefit from school-wide positive behavior supports, and those in need of specific and unique behavior modification should receive those services through their district or a third-party consultant. Laura, Ken, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Just want to thank everyone for joining our debate today. I hope everyone enjoyed it, and we look forward to your feedback.
That's all for me.
All right, thank you.